What's better than a devil you don't know? A devil you do.
Get those D20s on standby as we roll for another geeky topic here on Chat TPK, the home of all things D&D. I'm Mike, the DM of Debate here, and welcome back to all returning adventurers, and a big hello to those who are tuning in here for the very first time. Now, due to some scheduling conflicts with it being the summer holidays here in the UK, I thought rather than not post a pod this week at all, I would jump on the mic and do a topic that I have been wanting to do for quite a while. So, those that are fans of D&D, and in particular those of the Baldur's Gate game series, then please stay tuned as I'm going to give you my top tips on how to get the most out of the game. Following on from this, I'll be looking ahead to the month of August, which is very closely upon us, as we look at our release window, keeping you in the know with what to expect in the world of video games, film and TV. Now, as I am without any guests today, I'm going to Leroy Jenkins it and go straight into our main topic of Baldur's Gate 3. It is a game that is going to be celebrating a full year of release on the 3rd of August, which isn't too far away. And I thought now would be a great time with which to pass on everything that I have learned from the game since its full release in a nicely formulated list of my top 10 tips. This will be super useful, I think, for all new players, and actually even those that have been playing for a while, because there are lots of things that you just miss because it's such a big game. Also, if you have any of your own ideas, please comment this on the podcast, whether that's on our Spotify links, or if you want to join our community Discord, then we have got one where you can post your ideas there as well. And mentioning our Discord, our current weekly question went up recently, and I think it actually went up on the day of the recording of this pod. And our current question is, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized Tarrasques or a Tarrasque-sized duck? So have a think about that. It's quite an interesting one. Let us know your thoughts on this incredibly important question, and we'll give you a shout out with any of the cool responses that you give us on the next podcast. So with that in mind, I think it's time that we get on with Mike's top 10 tips. Now, for those that are new to D&D, this will be a really, really good tip to note, because those that are unaware of concentration with spells, this is definitely something you're going to want to be paying close attention to. Concentration is something within D&D where it's only affects certain types of spells, but they're normally spells that have a prolonged period and require you to actually, as a wizard, as a spellcaster, as a warlock, etc., to be maintaining that focus on that spell in order to keep it up. Not all spells have these. For instance, cantrips tend not to be always concentration. There are some concentration cantrips, but typically they are spells. And what you need to be really, really aware of in Baldur's Gate is it doesn't pop up on the screen and say, you know, you're casting this spell, it's concentration. If you cast this one, it will end that. Now, there is some red text that does, you know, kind of tell you this, but it's not really, really obvious unless you're looking out for it. And it doesn't pop up on the screen as a prompt like, yes, I'm aware of this, I don't want to close that spell, stop that spell running, and activate a new one, because that concentration will cancel out the previous spell. This can be particularly bothersome when you have just spent like a 4th level spell slot up leveling a cloud of daggers, for instance, really just to put some hurt on a group of enemies, and then on the next go you've cast something else like invisibility or something, and then you've just wasted that 4th level spell slot to give you something else. Now, some occasions you may actually want to do that, but just be aware it can really, really kick you in the bum. I'll give you an example. On my most recent stream of Baldur's Gate, I was playing in the Sharon Den where Shadowheart needs to go in Act 3. Small spoilers there. There will be some occasional spoilers in this, just so you're aware. So if you haven't played this game at all, yeah, you'll probably won't know what I'm talking about for half of it. But hey, some of these tips will be really useful later down the line when you do play it. Anyway, back to my point of my example, should I say, the time when concentration really kicked me in the bum. I was playing honor mode. I was massively outnumbered, probably like 5 or 6 to 1. Really, really big numbers against me. And the only thing that was keeping me in the fight was my Globe of Invulnerability. Now, that's a concentration spell. I was using that from a scroll because it's quite a high level spell. And if I didn't have that protecting me and my remaining players, my remaining characters, I would have died. I'd have lost my save. I've been playing it for 60, 70 hours plus, and it would have been very, very upsetting. Frustratingly, I forgot after like 2 or 3 turns of it being up, I forgot that it was concentration. And I cast, I think it was Hunger of Hadar or another spell that required concentration. Oh no, it's called Lightning, apologies. And yeah, that moment, again, it's on my stream, it's probably about an hour or so into it. My face drops. I'm like, oh my goodness, I've just done 15 or 16 points of damage to 2 or 3 enemies, but lost my Globe of Invulnerability. And that frightened the absolute bejesus out of me because it basically left me open for attack. And if it wasn't for my bonus action and the use of a potion of speed to give myself 1 extra action to recast Globe of Invulnerability, I would have certainly lost that battle and lost my save. So concentration, big tip, be aware of it. It can bite you in the bum. Okay, just be aware. Well, that's my first tip, probably a really, really important one to bear in mind. Tip number 2 is surprise. Now, surprise is a rule within D&D which is kind of like almost homebrewed a lot by lots of DMs, giving you what's called a surprise round. Now, this is kind of a hot topic within the community as to how you actually really meant to do it, because I don't think people generally go by the written word in the player's handbook or the Dungeon Master Guide. It's in one of them. Anywho, it's a bit of a strange one. Essentially, what surprise does is you come across a enemy that is not alert, and you get the jump on them, essentially. Now, in Baldur's Gate 3, this will give you a surprise round where every enemy you've stumbled upon, you get basically everyone rolls, but only your characters that are doing the surprising get to make an action or a movement within that first surprise round. This is going to be changing within the new player's handbook come September when that's released. And I think that rather than giving a surprise round or something like that, they are just giving you advantage on initiative rolls, which is fair enough. I think it does balance it out because the surprise round itself is deadly. Some combats can actually be ended before the enemies even get a go, which as a player is fantastic. And in Baldur's Gate 3, really, really useful. So I would suggest new dangerous areas such as like the Underdark or most of Act 2. I would sneak everywhere, and this will give you the ability to sneak up on enemies, groups of enemies that you know are enemies. Sometimes you don't know if it's an NPC that you want to interact with or an enemy, so just be aware. But if it's like a monster or something that you're 99% sure is going to kill you if you startle it, then you can sneak, then you can get the surprise round on it, and that way take it down quicker, potentially within that one round. You never know. If there's lots of mobs there, it will let you whittle them down so they're a smaller number. And this actually does really help as well. If that creature or that person you're facing has got great dex, a great initiative, you still get to go before them because of that surprise round. So that's actually really, really good. I think this works really well using something like a Gloomstalker Assassin or a similar sort of rogue build, giving you that sneak attack. Works really nicely. Also can combo quite well with the Gloomstalker's Dread Ambusher. Really recommend it. That's currently what I'm using on one of my builds on BG3, and let me tell you, you get greater invisibility on that as well, and you've got good stealth, which as a rogue you typically do. Then you can just clear up. You can clear the mobs. Greater invisibility lets you do actions, but then take a stealth check to see whether people will see what you've done. If your stealth has got a really, really good proficiency, maybe you've got expertise in stealth, then you're just going to keep shooting things, keep stabbing things, and never be seen. And it's an insane combination. I think that potential surprise round, as they call it, is something that's so powerful, and you really, really need to use it often, as much as you can. That's surprise round 4, tip number 2. Tip number 3 is, now this is really important, especially on honor mode, because of the fact that, if you get a TPK, if you have everyone in your party be killed, then you lose your save. No matter how far through into it, it's like a hardcore sort of mode, really quite brutal. It's also on the toughest difficulty, so the enemies hit harder, or they're more intelligent, they use different spells potentially, they have different weapons. For instance, I know one of the fights quite early on, that's different about it is it gives the goblins you attack some fire arrows and places some more barrels around to blow you up. So little things like that where it just makes it that little bit trickier, and the actual AI is smarter. So they will try and do stuff that you may not have thought about in a previously easier mode. Therefore, because of that difficulty increase, I think having one person, and preferably a ranged character, on the edge of the battle, not in the thick of things, away from pretty much everyone. This might be really good for someone like a ranger, or maybe someone like a warlock who's got a really long Eldritch Blast casting distance, something along those lines that they can get out quick. Maybe give them something like Misty Step to really get away, but you need to be able to get away from the combat. It's, I think, 90 foot away from the nearest enemy, and then you can flee. If your character that's on the edge of combat is the last one standing, because maybe you've underestimated, or it's a really tricky fight and you're expecting a tough one, but you've not done well, and the beholder that you've been, not the beholder because that's not actually in the game, the spectator is in the game, and maybe you're trying to battle that and it's really actually smashing you, having that one person on the edge of combat is going to really help you flee back to camp, and you can always go and buy your characters that have died back, and live to fight another day, not lose your save, not lose that precious honor save. So tip number 3, be really careful. Don't use resurrection scrolls if you don't need to, because actually resurrection scrolls typically are more expensive than just buying the people back in your camp, and I'll talk about that a bit later on when we mention withers. So tip number 3, stay cautious, have someone on the edge of the combat. Tip number 4, have someone in the party that is really, really good at lockpicking. Lockpicking is such a useful talent for a character to have, probably a high dex character. I know a lot of people will use Astarion in particular, as he's a rogue, to be their lockpicker. But there are hundreds of chests and locked doors that easily become accessible to you once you become really proficient in this lockpicking ability. So having that high dex, having maybe proficiency or expertise in a sleight of hand, and obviously having lots of lockpicking kits on you is really useful. Having someone to be able to cast guidance on you to do that as well. And I think there's all sorts of different things that you can do. There are certain actual bits of equipment that will give you advantage on sleight of hand checks as well. So you can make yourself really, really good at unlocking these chests and these doors. Some of these things will actually have a key or a lever to pull or something along those lines to actually open it. So there are some things that you don't have to unlock to be able to find a way of getting them open. But that said, if you just want to get in there now, then you have someone that can do that. If you don't want to be kept away from a certain area, and you're just really, really curious, and there's no enemies around, there's no one that's going to find you, or if there are enemies, then just sneak. And with the high dex character, that's possible. But I don't like being stopped from going places. I want to know what's in that chest. Hopefully it's not trapped, but if it is trapped, you can use your high dex then to undo the trap as well. I think it's a really important thing. Have a good character that can lockpick and undo traps, and you can just get into so much of the content that's out there that may be, for a short time at least, kept from you One really, really sneaky thing you can do is in Act 3, you get to go to, I think, one of the big banks there, like the Golden Vault or something. And there is tens of thousands of gold coins sitting in those vaults, whether it's in actual coinage or if like currency, or if it's in weaponry, armor. There's so much in that vault, and in many of the vaults, in fact, within the Baldur's Gate bank, and you can become an absolute minted character should you use your really decent lockpicking character. Bear in mind, some of those DCs might be quite high, like we're talking like DC 25, some of the vaults DC 30, which sounds incredibly hard, but you can get your character that good. My main, one of my current saves, is that kind of character, and I think with guidance she can get like plus 15 to 17 or plus 15 to 18 on her roll. So she's gonna have to roll pretty low to not even be able to meet a DC 20. So it's something I would really, really recommend. Tip 5, previously mentioned, Withers. The character, the NPC Withers, you do meet fairly early on within Act 1. Creepy old dude, talks a lot of rubbish, but do not let that dissuade you from the actual helpfulness he can provide. He, for the small cost of 200 gold pieces, can respec any of your characters. This is particularly useful if you have a character that you love, but you don't like their class. For instance, again, giving you some examples here, I like Astarion. I think he's a really, really funny character with some great dialogue. My character was a rogue, a ranger. I didn't want 2 rogues in the party, so I just respect him. A few times, in fact. Once I accidentally got Will, the warlock, got him killed for good, completely unable to be used again. Again, if you're a new player, I won't spoil as to why. But I couldn't use him, so therefore I was like, well, Astarion, guess what you're going to become now? I made him into a warlock, which Withers will allow you to do. And yeah, that means that if for instance, you want to just double check level ups you've done, maybe you're not happy with a feat you've chosen, maybe you really want to just go change a spell list, which for some classes can only be changed on a level up, so it can be quite frustrating. And I think that one thing makes Withers an insanely useful NPC. He's in your camp, he can always be pretty much accessed, and that's fantastic. But what you can do is you can get hirelings from Withers as well. So say for instance you've lost a few party members and you want to say, all right, I've lost Lizelle, my warrior, my fighter even, because you've upset her or she got killed from a certain event in the game, and you're like, well, I don't want to respec another one of my characters. I can get a hireling instead to do that job for them. So hirelings you can pay and have. There's a big pool of different hirelings you can have. And even the ones that you hire, you can change them as well. You can completely customize them. So you have a bit of freedom there, which is quite nice. Another thing that Withers can do as well is that he can bring back people that I've already mentioned back from the dead. So say, for instance, you are in an owlbear nest. One of your characters has got mauled to death by an owlbear, and it's actually too dangerous to stay in that fight and try and get them up. Just go back to camp. I think it's also something similar, probably about 200 gold as well, something quite similar. And you can rejuvenate them, you can revivify them, you can resurrect them, and they'll appear right back in front of you, and you can bring them back into your party. You don't have to go back into that owlbear cave to go get their body, because Withers can teleport it there. It's fantastic. So, tip number 5, Withers is a G. Best friend Withers. Tip number 6. This is actually a tip I would recommend not just for Baldur's Gate, but for D&D as well. If you've got a ally who is either on low HP or down, particularly down, for instance, like if they're unconscious or something, unless you're really, really worried that they're going to die, which in D&D is quite a scary thing, in Baldur's Gate not so much. But essentially, rather than really fuss over them and go out of your way to use your movement, and spend your action to get that character up, it might actually be worth just using that action to attack and potentially kill the things that are trying to kill you. So a good defense in this situation could actually just be attacking. Because on the flip side, if you get that person up, they might only be, for instance, if you do the help action and help them up, they're on 1 HP. If you use something like Cure Wounds on them, they might have less than 10 HP, which, at high levels will be certainly a small enough amount of HP for them to get kicked back down again in the next round of combat, or maybe even later in that round itself. So it actually is really worth maybe not getting them up, attacking first, and then hopefully stopping any of the creatures that would have killed that character again really, really quickly, not being around. Really think about when and where you get characters up, because it may just be a wasted action. They might go down again, and it's not very efficient. So think about it going forward. That's the tip number 6. Sometimes attacking is better than getting someone up. Tip number 7. Scrolls are usable by anyone, and they are so incredibly useful, especially if you've run out of spell slots. There's nothing worse than being a warlock and having only a few spell slots and thinking, well, great, I'm a spellcaster and I can't cast any spells. Yeah, I could do it on a short rest, but if it's a particularly long battle and you're needed, scrolls have your back. If you're a wizard and you want to expand your wizard's spell book, scrolls are there to be learnt. They are so insanely useful. Going back to that example, Globe of Invulnerability was a spell scroll that I used in my honor mode. I had like 5 or 6 of them. Without them, I would have lost it. None of my characters know that spell, but I had the scroll. You just never know when these scrolls will come in handy. You pick up so many throughout the game from all different types of spells. They could be really, really useful at AoE ones like Fireball. They could be something really incredibly powerful on a single enemy like Disintegrate. And not all your characters will necessarily have these different types of spells, but they could if they're a wizard with these spells by learning them. It's just such an underrated, useful way of expanding the capabilities of your characters, and definitely something to lean back on. You don't want to get to the end of Act 3 and have a rucksack full of like 50 to 100 unused spell scrolls. Some of them you may never use, because not all of the spells in there are actually worth using. For instance, see invisibility. I've got about 5 or 6 of them in my inventory, and I don't need it because one of my characters can see invisible things because they've got a fake eye. So I will never use that. In that case, go to a trader, offload it, sell it, get some money. You don't need it. But there are loads that you do, so be sure to use them, and use them when you need them. Don't just store them up and hoard them, because, especially in honor mode, that you will come to rely on them a lot. But yeah, that's tip number 7, scrolls. Number 8, be sure to have a donkey. Now, I don't mean the character or the creature, should I say, of a donkey, because actually I don't think there are any donkeys in this game, which is sad because I do love the creatures. But you make sure you have a character that has got really, really high strength, Karlach, and they can basically be the person that carries all of your heavy equipment. Whether that is being the person that carries all your loot, or your heavy armor, your heavy weapons, or someone who actually just carries the money, because when you get lots of money, that can start to weigh a lot. When you get lots of potions and all these things start to weigh a lot, be sure to make sure that your donkey has got loads of strength in order to not be encumbered. Because when you become, is it unencumbered? One of the word. I think it's encumbered, where you basically become slower. It slows you down both in combat. So basically you use half your movement speed, and outside of combat as well. It does slow you down, making you walk around the map a lot slower, which can get really, really annoying. And it stops you from being able to fast travel, which again is super annoying, especially if you need to flee from something. If you're over encumbered, that's what I'm looking for. Over encumbered, you will not be able to flee, and you will just get munched on by that sneaky cheeky owlbear or whatever it is you're facing. So make sure you have someone with that super good strength. There are some items that you'll be able to find that will actually allow you to, in some cases, double how much you can carry, which is really useful. I know I've got a really cool set of, I think it's gauntlets on Karlach that double her carrying ability, or it might even be what she's wearing, actually, like the Mighty Cloth, which will double their carrying ability. Anywho, as I say, really important. You don't want to be lugging around these things at a really slow pace. Make sure you have someone that can carry a lot, because you're going to be looting a lot of things throughout the game. A quick mention on that though, as well, a lot of people don't realise this. Your food that you eat, that you use for your long rests, weighs a lot actually. Once you start getting lots of food, and also like, you know, the packages that you have. But camp supplies, they can stack up and they get very, very heavy. If you literally go into your inventory and select just camp supplies, and it shows you all the camp supplies packages and the food, you can grab all of them and click them and send them all to camp. You don't lose them. When you go back to have a long rest at camp, it will draw upon them from your camp chest. So you never have to hold on to any of this, and that way you're not going to be in danger of getting over encumbered too quickly. So yeah, send back that food, it will be safe and ready to use when you have your long rest later on. Tip number 9 is actually about your party composition. Now this is actually something that lots of players face within D&D as well, because if you don't have something like a healer within your party, you can pretty much guess that someone's going to go down at some point and not get back up. So really think about your party composition here. I would recommend that Shadowheart is an absolute must for Act 2. If you don't use Shadowheart in Act 2, you're going to struggle, just because of some of the things that she can do, especially with her cleric abilities. So definitely use her. It's basically her act anyway, because it's all tied to her religious beliefs. And yeah, I won't spoil it too much if you haven't played it already, but in Act 2, use Shadowheart. She's fantastic in it. And you get a lot of her backstory from this act. Probably have Will around for Act 2 and definitely Act 3. Act 3 is a big act for Will. Will's fantastic. He's a warlock. Probably not the best in terms of dialogue, because he's a bit of a goody two-shoes. And yeah, if you want to be a little bit of a rebel now and again, he's not so much up for that. He just like wants to do the right thing. So yeah, I'm probably not a fan favourite Will. I like him though. But yeah, be sure to keep him around for Act 3. There's some fantastic quest lines regarding Will in Act 3. So yeah, be sure to look after him. Don't get him killed like I did in Act 2. As I said previously, a healer is super important. So whether that's going to be Shadowheart, then that's fine. Or if your Tav, your main character, could be one as well. Also, a druid could be a good healer. So don't overlook someone like Halsin or Jaheira, who you could potentially get in Act 2. Although what I would say is it's really strange. You haven't got any characters that can be a bard. You haven't got any characters that can be a sorcerer, or sorry, NPCs should I say, or companions that can be those classes. But they gave you 2 druids, which I thought was interesting. Both Jaheira and Halsin are druids. Not a great choice. Having said this, in patch 7, I think they are going to allow, is it Almira, the tiefling that plays the lute? Oh no, Alfira. Alfira is her name. She is going to be able to be a companion from patch 7. I'm not sure how long for. It may only be for a small amount of time. And I also think it's only available to those playing a Dark Urge playthrough. But that would give you the ability of being a bard. Anywho, just really think about your party composition. You want a tank. You want someone that's going to be able to take the hits and taunt people and get stuck in. That screams to me barbarian, maybe a fighter, maybe even a paladin. So be sure to have one of those. You want someone that can attack from range, whether that's going to be a spellcaster, whether that's going to be a ranger or rogue. You want to have some range in there. You want some stealth, because you are going to need to sneak around at certain points, so consider that. And you want that healer. You need a healer, a support character that can do things like bless, that can put buffs on people, that can just keep people in the game from going down. Because once they're down, you get in that strange sticky situation, which I mentioned in a previous tip. So keeping them up in the first place should be done. Getting things like mass healing words is fantastic. Just giving those people a few extra little hit points just to make sure they don't go down. And I think even one of the different items you get think I've got it equipped on my Shadowheart character currently. When you heal someone, it also casts Bless on them. That can be a game changer. If you can heal people using like something like Mass Healing Word and bless them all in one fell swoop for just a bonus action. Just a bonus action. That's really, really good. So look out for items that complement some of these abilities, and really make sure that you're certain of the roles that each character is playing within your party setup, because everyone should be bringing something to the party. If they're just to be there for flavour or there for their character narrative, then you're going to struggle in some combats. So make sure everyone's doing something. Again, some characters could be useful in exploration outside of combat, but everyone can be utilised if you think about it carefully. So yeah, number 9 is your party composition. Really think about it. My final big tip is going to be don't be a murder hobo. You're going to lose lots of quests later on in different acts if you kill everyone you see and nick their stuff. You actually could also potentially lose out on loot anyway, because when you kill someone, they don't always drop everything they had on them. So say, for instance, you're sneaking, you try to pickpocket them, and you can see they've got some wicked stuff on them. Loads of gold, some really cool items, especially this is quite noticeable on traders. And then you kill them, and you're like, what the hell? They haven't dropped half that stuff. So just be careful. Don't kill everyone. It's probably better to pickpocket them, potentially, as they don't always drop what they have on them on death. If you kill everyone, for instance, I know if you kill the Zentarim in their underground lair, that does make that faction hostile to you later on in the game. So you don't really want to upset other people that are not in your current vicinity, because these repercussions could be felt across the game. It would be a shame that you just lost the ability to do quite a few different quests because you saw something shiny on an NPC that you wanted there and then, and it would be a shame. So try not to be a murder hobo. It is good for XP, I will admit. Killing things is a great way of farming XP, but I've never actually, through all my playthroughs, ever needed to go and kill loads of things. Quests give you lots of XP, exploration gives you lots of XP. You don't really need it, to be honest. So yeah, tip number 10, don't be a murder hobo. There's always another way around it. And that is really my big list of tips. A few bonus ones just to very quickly mention. A really good combination here that I would recommend you use is Hunger of Hadar, it's on the Warlock, and also Eldritch Blast. Big pool of darkness that slows them down, hits them with cold damage, and becomes difficult terrain, so it halves their movement speed, and they can't see out of it, obviously, because it's darkness. And then you can use Eldritch Blast with Repelling Blast just to ping them back in and keep that combo going. Really, really useful in tight spaces. Another thing I would recommend, just very quickly, is using those tadpole abilities, using the Mind Flayer things. If you come across a tadpole, use it. It does eventually, when you get to, I think, end of Act 2, potentially make your character look quite ugly. Again, this is all subjective, but it does give your character the potential abilities of things like Mind Blasting them and stunning creatures, of charming them so they can't attack you, of, and this is a really game-breaking one because it doesn't use any spell slots, flying. Your characters can fly. It's insane both in and out of combat, as it's just part of your speed. I think it's a 60-foot flying speed or something. And you get that from using the tadpoles, so don't overlook them. It pays to also take your time and explore absolutely everything. It is an incredibly dense game, so don't feel like, oh, I'm 50 hours in and I'm still in Act 1. That's fine. You go at your own speed, look at everything. There's always something to be found, no matter where you are, whether it's a new quest, some loot, or some cool monsters that you haven't found yet. Really, really pay attention. There's stuff everywhere. Take your time. Another thing quickly before we end our little chat on Baldur's Gate is you can do both the Githyanki Crest, which is in the Mountain Pass, and the Underdark route. You can do both of them. Okay, you can go through and do all the Underdark and then go back up and do all of the Mountain Pass. You don't have to choose one or the other. What you do have to choose is basically at the end of both of those areas, one of them will let you into Act 2. but you can do so all the stuff that's in there, in those 2 areas, before you move on. So don't overlook that. Be sure to do both. Lots of XP, lots of loot waiting for you, lots of quest lines that can be updated. And both of those areas are definitely not worth missing out on. So yeah, do both, okay? I know it does prompt you by saying, warning, you are entering a new area, and that can put off a lot of people and make them think, actually, I need to make a choice here. You don't need to make a big choice. Go visit both areas. Also, one of my last tips actually is make sure you have a character in your party with guidance. Guidance is the best thing ever. It affects so much in your persuasion, in your intimidation, in your history checks, all the checks that you do in conversations, for instance. Cast guidance on all your lock picking, all your strength checks that you need to, for instance, push something. Yeah, guidance is insane. Giving that 1d4 just to boost you up can really change the, turn the tide on something that would have gone afoul otherwise. And finally, I keep saying finally, but this is the last one. Please make sure that you are equipping weapons that your character is proficient in. If you equip a character with a weapon that they're not proficient in, they don't get their proficiency bonus, which is not great. And each weapon has got like mastery abilities that come with it. So for instance, I know with a bow, you can hamstring shot someone, which slows them down, or all sorts of things that these weapons can do. You can only do those things if you're proficient in those weapons. So just be aware, don't just chuck a mace on your wizard, because chances are they aren't proficient on it. They won't be able to use it, and I don't know why you put a mace on a wizard anyway. But they've got the spells, haven't they? They've got the cantrips. But you get my drift. Just be really, really careful of what weapons you are using. Make sure you are checking their proficiencies. This counts for armor as well, because not all characters are able to wear armor. For instance, it stops barbarians using their rage if you put heavy armor on them. It also will stop characters that can cast spells if you put an armor that they're not proficient in, should I say. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Really look at what it says. They normally gives you a little prompt as to putting this weapon on or putting this armor on is not in their proficiencies. They may not be able to use it. Just read it and be careful. So that is all my tips for Baldur's Gate 3. I hope that's really helped. Whether you are a new player or a veteran of Baldur's Gate 3, it has been out for a year now. It was released in August the 3rd, 2023. And I imagine if you haven't already picked the game up, it will probably be getting a sale very, very soon. So be sure to look out on things like Steam or on the Xbox Marketplace or the PlayStation Store. If you haven't got it, it is on consoles, it is on PC, it is on Mac, so be sure to pick it up. Patch 7, they have alluded, will introduce crossplay. So if you've got a buddy that has it on Xbox and you want to play it on PlayStation, that is going to be possible for you to play together soon. I think they said September is when they're going to release patch 7, so just be aware that is going to be possible very, very soon. Join our Discord, because we are looking to start some new campaigns with people from the community, and jump on in. It'll be great to have you join us. I'm going to end off today's episode with a look at August in terms of films, TV and games with our release window. So, starting off with films and TV, we have got Harold and the Purple Crayon coming to cinemas on Friday the 2nd of August, and I think this one is mainly aimed at kids. It's got Zachary Levi in, who you probably know from Shazam. And what actually made me think about this film being quite an interesting one is that the crayon he uses, anything he draws comes to life, and that reminded me so much of, if you're a long-time fan of the podcast here, you might remember back in episode 5 when Martin was speaking about the wondrous item called Marvelous Pigments, which are a set of paints that you can draw and it comes to life, and anything you draw, it becomes that real thing. So yeah, gave me those little D&D vibes there. Looks like a cheesy, funny little film which you may enjoy with your kids, so be sure to check that out Friday 2nd of August. On the 9th of August, you have got Borderlands, a long-awaited video game adaptation coming to cinemas. It looks interesting. It's had some mixed reviews from critics so far, but I'm really looking forward to seeing it, so be sure to check that out if you are a fan of those games. Going on to the 16th of August, we have got the next Alien installment, Alien Romulus, and I still think Ridley Scott is involved, so be sure to go and watch that, or wait for it on, like I normally do to be honest, wait for it on VOD when it comes out. But it does look really good. The trailer looks really awesome. It's got Isabel Massad in, who I think was from that Dora the Explorer film, so it's got a younger cast going into this one, and if you like the Alien films, definitely one to go and watch. In terms of TV, we have got on the 29th on Prime Video the next series of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. I have watched the first series. I did like it, not as much as I loved the first 3 films, but this was a fantastic series. It's been given a humongous budget, and you can really tell by some of the special effects and the outfits and the costuming and the set plays which they have within this series. So series 2, go watch the trailer, looks really, really good. If you love the first series, I'm sure you're going to love the second one as it releases out on Prime Video in only a few more weeks. Finally, with our TV shows to round up, we have got Terminator Zero, which is an animated series coming to Netflix, also on the 29th of August. So if you love the Terminator universe and you have a Netflix account, then be sure to check that out as well. Terminator Zero coming out at the end of August. Moving over to our games. So in terms of our August games, it's quite light. There's a lot coming out in September, but these are the highlights I would have for you to look at, maybe look at picking up. There is a remaster of Star Wars Bounty Hunter. Now this is a game that I played loads when I was a kid, back when it was on, I think, the PlayStation 2, but they have, like they have with lots of other games, like the Battlefront games, they've remastered this and they've added lots of new features in. So if you like the original, be sure to go pick this up. It comes out on the 1st of August, the very first day. So I imagine it'll be available in all consoles. I think actually, yeah, it does say all consoles here and PC, etc. So yeah, available to all. The long-awaited, much anticipated Cat's Quest 3 Pirates of the Caribbean comes out on the 8th of August. I have admittedly played some Cat's Quest. It was enjoyable. Didn't complete it, but I think I played Cat's Quest 2 because it's on Xbox Game Pass. But it is a bit of a laugh, and if you like cats, it's definitely one for you, so check that out. Dustborn comes out on the 20th. Now this is a cel-shaded RPG, which is a bit like Hi-Fi Rush. So if you like Hi-Fi Rush, this one reminded me a bit of that. Now it's not a hack and slash sort of game like Hi-Fi Rush, but there's a lot of music embedded within the gameplay, should I say. So it's an RPG, very stylized, a bit like Borderlands, or Tales from the Borderlands, should I say, like all those Telltale games. But it looks really cool. Go watch the trailer. If it's for you, then I hope you enjoy it. It comes out on the 20th. Going onwards through August, we have got the next installment of World of Warcraft, The War Within, coming out on the 26th. So I've not played World of Warcraft for many years, but if you're still hooked to that series, then the new expansion is coming out very soon. If you are into your JRPGs, such as those Square Enix series that they always seem to have thousands of, then Visions of Mana might be for you. It comes out on the 29th of August. Another one of those fantastic JRPGs, lovely art style, good turn-based combat, and I'm sure a compelling story to boot. Be sure to check that out if you'd like those types of games. And rounding off with our look at the release window for games this month is going to be Star Wars Outlaws. Comes out on the 30th, and this is going to be another release within the Star Wars series. It's more focused on the smuggler sort of, think of like your Han Solo sort of character. It's more of a shooting rather than a hack and slash Jedi sort of game. But yeah, again, if you're into your Star Wars, you probably are aware of this coming out, and it comes out on the 30th. So I hope you enjoy that when it does release. And that brings us to the end of August's release window. Now, with that out of the way, I only have one thing left to do, and that is to thank you all so much for listening to this. I am aware you've been listening to just me for what is close to an hour now, so thank you so much. We are going to be having guests come back soon to the pod. It has just been one of those weeks where lots of people are busy, or they're on holiday, or we're getting to that age here on the pod where we are having children and stuff. So lots of things going on, lots more interesting topics to discuss with you soon, whether that's D&D based, whether that's video game based. I look forward to having you join us in future weeks. If you're not already a follower on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever app you are currently listening to this podcast on, then give us a follow, hit that bell and subscribe to us so you can see when the next podcast episodes release. They are normally on a Monday, but it's been a really busy week. Check us out on YouTube. We have got our weekly gaming or gaming weekly videos being posted up on there. We have a Twitch account at TPK, and also you can join us on our community Discord. So all the links for this will be below the description of the podcast, and we hope to hear from you soon. Be sure to check out this week's weekly question, and any comments you have for us, whether that's tips that you want to give us based upon today's Baldur's Gate topic, then please comment us in the podcast or on Discord or on our social medias. Any way you want to get into contact, there is a way to do that. So I will see you soon. Have a happy, healthy week. I'm out.